He walked into a dusty diner expecting nothing more than a cup of coffee. But instead, he found a childhood friend who once saved his future, now serving tables, tired and broken. What started as a flat tire on the highway turned into a moment that would change both of their lives forever. Stay with me, because this story will make you believe in second chances, and you don't want to miss it. And if you want to hear more stories like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story might just change the way you see your own journey. Have you ever noticed how life has a way of surprising us at the very moment we think we have everything under control? Sometimes it takes a flat tire, a wrong turn, or a missed exit to put us exactly where we were meant to be. That's how it was for Daniel Mercer. Daniel was a man who had built his life around schedules, precision, and success. On that Tuesday morning, he was supposed to be on the highway, heading toward Denver for a high-profile meeting. His assistant had carefully packed his briefcase, his chauffeur had mapped the route, and everything was lined up perfectly, as it always was. Daniel's life had no room for accidents, no time for surprises. But fate doesn't ask for permission. Somewhere outside of Silverton, New Mexico, his sleek black car rolled to a stop with a flat tire. Just like that, his plans unraveled. His driver called for roadside assistance, but it would be hours before anyone arrived. And in that wide stretch of desert highway, the only building nearby was a weathered diner with a flickering neon sign, Molly's Place. Daniel almost laughed at the thought. Him, sitting in some dusty roadside diner? He hadn't done that in decades, but there was no avoiding it. He pushed open the diner's door, and a small bell gave a tired little jingle, announcing his arrival. Inside, it felt like stepping into a time capsule. Vinyl booths patched with duct tape. Sun-bleached photos of local softball teams hanging crooked on the walls. A jukebox in the corner that looked like it hadn't played a song since the last century. And then there was the smell, greasy bacon frying on the grill, black coffee brewing, the kind of smell that sticks to your clothes long after you've left. Daniel adjusted his tailored jacket, suddenly aware of how out of place he looked. Around him sat truck drivers in worn baseball caps, farmers with sunburned skin, locals chatting like family. He was just another stranger passing through. Sliding into a booth by the window, Daniel ordered a simple black coffee. He pulled out his phone, ready to salvage what he could of the morning, when a voice interrupted. "Morning. Can I get you started with some breakfast?" He looked up and froze. There, standing with a notepad in hand and an apron tied around her waist, was a face he never thought he'd see again. Claire Donovan. Not just any Claire Donovan. His Claire Donovan. The girl who had been his best friend back in middle school. The one who used to sit on the apartment stoop with him, quizzing him on math problems until the sun went down. The one who taught him how to laugh when kids made fun of his secondhand sneakers. The one who swore she'd chase her dreams until the world took notice. For a moment, Daniel couldn't speak. His throat tightened. He hadn't seen her in over 20 years, yet he knew her instantly. But Claire, she didn't recognize him. Not at first. Her hair was pulled back loosely, her apron faded from years of use. Her eyes carried the weight of exhaustion, and her smile, though polite, was thin, almost forced. She scribbled his order on the pad with hands that trembled slightly, as if the simple act of holding a pen took more energy than it should. Daniel wanted to stare, but he forced himself to look away. He didn't want to be rude, didn't want to make her uncomfortable. Yet memories came rushing back. The way she used to talk about opening a bookstore, the way she believed life had more to offer than their struggling neighborhood. And now, here she was, carrying plates and wiping tables in a roadside diner. When she finally glanced up again, her eyes locked onto his. And that's when it clicked. Her head tilted, her brows furrowed. "Wait, Daniel?" Daniel Mercer. He stood slightly, managing a smile. "Yeah, it's me. Been a long time." The recognition spread across her face, followed by a small laugh. It was the same laugh he remembered, though now it carried a hint of disbelief. "I'll say, what are you doing in a place like this?" He could have told her the truth, that his car had given up on him, that he was stuck here by pure chance. But something in her tone, something in the way she asked, made him choose his words carefully. "Just passing through," he said. Claire shook her head lightly, still half smiling. "Well, You sure picked the right day to stop by." Then, just like that, she was gone again, pulled toward the kitchen by the shout of a cook and the clatter of plates. Daniel sat back, staring at the black coffee in front of him. He wasn't used to waiting for people. In his world, people made time for him. But in this diner, in Claire's world, he was just another customer. Yet, as he watched her weave through the tables, greeting customers by name, balancing steaming plates with practiced ease, he realized something. He didn't want to be just another customer. Not with her. Not with the friend who once saved his future. And though he didn't know it yet, this unexpected detour, this diner on the side of the highway, was about to change both their lives forever. When life brings an old friend back into your path, it feels like the years melt away. And yet, sometimes those same years build walls you don't see until you try to talk again. That's how it felt for Daniel Mercer, sitting in that booth at Molly's place while Claire Donovan floated between tables. Every few minutes, she glanced his way, and each time, Daniel's chest tightened with a mix of joy and sorrow. He was glad to see her alive, glad to see her here. But he couldn't shake the thought. What happened? When the rush slowed down, Claire finally slid into the booth across from him. She looked at him with a half-smile, the kind that said she wanted to laugh but wasn't sure if she should. "So," she said, folding her hands on the table. "It's really you. After all this time." Daniel chuckled softly. "Guess some things don't change. You still have that same look, like you're about to quiz me on fractions." That made her laugh for real, and the sound was like a window opening in a stuffy room. For a moment, he could see the girl she used to be. "You even have the same serious face," she teased. "But you look different. In a good way." Her eyes flicked over his tailored suit, the expensive watch, the polished shoes that had never known dirt. She didn't say anything else, but the difference between them hung in the air. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. He didn't want her to feel like they lived in two different worlds, even though it was true. "I've been working in real estate," he said carefully. "Keeps me busy." "Real estate?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Like selling houses?" "Something like that," Daniel replied, dodging the full truth. He wasn't about to tell her about his multi-million-dollar portfolio, the skyscrapers, the glossy magazine features. He didn't want her to see him as some untouchable success story. He just wanted to be Daniel again, the boy who once dreamed with her on the apartment stoop. She didn't push, but her eyes lingered on him. Curious, maybe even suspicious. "So what brings you to Silverton?" she asked. "Just a pit stop," Daniel said. "That's rare," she replied. "Most people who come in here are locals, truckers, or lost." Daniel smirked. "Guess I fall into the last category then." For a moment, almost felt easy again. They laughed. They traded small jokes. But underneath, Daniel noticed things he couldn't ignore. The way her shoulders slumped when she thought no one was watching. The slight tremor in her hands as she poured more coffee. The limp in her step when she walked away. And her smile, it was there, but it wasn't whole. It was the kind of smile you put on like a mask because people expect it. Daniel found himself remembering their teenage dreams. Back then, they had talked about opening a bookstore together. Not just any bookstore, but one with bean-bag chairs and walls covered in art from local kids. A place full of color and creativity. Looking at her now, carrying plates in a dusty diner, it hurt. Because it wasn't supposed to be like this for her. He stayed longer than he meant to. He watched as Claire worked the room with practiced grace, laughing at an old man's joke, dodging a child who ran between tables. But he also noticed the cracks in the act. The moments when her smile faded, the seconds when her eyes drifted toward the window as though wishing herself elsewhere. When the crowd thinned, she came back and leaned against his booth. "You still in touch with anyone from back home?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "Not really. Life got busy." "Yeah," she said softly. "Same here. Busy looks a little different for me, though." He caught the edge in her voice, the bitterness she tried to hide. "You want to talk about it?" he asked gently. For a moment, she hesitated. Then her eyes flicked toward the cook in the back, a heavy-set man leaning half out of the kitchen window, clearly eavesdropping. "Not here," she said. "Not with Earl listening." Daniel smiled faintly. "Fair enough. You free after your shift. If I can get someone to cover the last hour, maybe." She bit her lip, uncertain. "Why? What's this about?" Just catching up, he said. But in truth, it was more than that. He wanted answers. He wanted to know why the girl who once dreamed bigger than anyone else he knew was now living smaller than she deserved. Before she could respond, a man in a trucker cap waved his empty mug in the air. "Claire, refill." She sighed. "Story of my life." And off she went again, limp, barely noticeable, but still there. Daniel watched her go, a heaviness in his chest. He knew something had happened, something big. Life had weighed her down, bent her spirit. And though he didn't know what it was yet, he felt a quiet determination rising inside him. Because this wasn't just an old friend. This was the girl who once saved him from giving up on himself. And now, he realized, it might be his turn to return the favor. There's a saying that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you can't see. And sometimes it takes years of distance and one unexpected reunion to finally glimpse the weight someone has been carrying all along. For Daniel Mercer, that moment came late in the evening at Molly's place. The dinner rush had passed. The clatter of dishes was softer now, the conversations quieter, the desert night pressing in against the windows. Claire Donovan finally untied her faded apron, tossed it onto a hook behind the counter, and came back to his booth. This time, she didn't hover at the edge. She slid into the seat across from him, her shoulders relaxing for the first time all night. Without the apron, without the constant interruptions, she looked more like the girl he remembered. "I've got about half an hour before my relief shows up," she said, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "You want to talk?" "So talk." Daniel studied her, unsure where to start. "I just wanted to know how you've been. Really been." Claire let out a short, humorless laugh. "You sure you want the honest version? That's the only one I'm interested in." For a long moment, she just looked at him, her eyes searching his face like she was trying to decide whether he could handle the truth. Then slowly she nodded. "All right, honest version it is." She took a breath, and her voice softened into something rawer, more vulnerable. "After high school, I thought I had it all figured out. Got a scholarship to the University of New Mexico. I was the first in my family to even think about college. I thought, finally, this is it. My ticket out. My chance to do something bigger." She gave a small, wistful smile, one that vanished almost as quickly as it came. "But then my mom got sick, real sick, and there wasn't anyone else to take care of her. So I dropped out." Daniel felt a heaviness settle in his chest. He stayed quiet, letting her go on. "Bills piled up. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, just to keep the lights on. After she passed, I thought maybe I'd go back, but life doesn't wait for you. Once you're behind, you're behind." She glanced down at her hands, rough and tired from years of work. "And then I got married." Her voice faltered on that word. "He seemed stable," she continued, eyes fixed on the table. "He liked that I didn't ask questions about where the money was coming from. I thought, okay, maybe this is how I get back on track. But turns out where the money was going was a blackjack table in Laughlin. Every paycheck, every dollar, gone before it even touched the bank." Daniel clenched his jaw, his stomach twisting. "One day I woke up and he was gone. Packed up, disappeared. Haven't heard from him in over 2 years. Left me with nothing but the debt." She shrugged, but the motion was hollow. "And since then, well, here I am. Tried a few jobs, but the diner's steady. Pays the bills. That's all I can say for it." Silence settled between them. Not the awkward kind, but the heavy kind, the kind that carries the weight of years, of losses, of dreams deferred. Finally, Claire lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes directly. "Don't look at me like that, Daniel. I'm not telling you this for pity. It's just life. Some people climb mountains. Some people stay in the valley. That's all." Daniel shook his head slowly. "That's not how I see it." Her brows furrowed. "Then how do you see it?" "I see someone who didn't quit, even when life threw everything at her. Someone who kept going when a lot of people would have given up. You didn't lose, Claire. You just got knocked down." For the first time all evening, her eyes softened. But just as quickly, she smirked faintly, trying to shield herself. "Easy for you to say. You're sitting there in a suit that probably costs more than my car." Daniel leaned forward, his voice gentle. "Maybe, but that doesn't mean I forgot where I came from, or who helped me get here." And then he told her the truth. "You were the one who kept me in school when I wanted to give up. You're the reason I passed math, the reason I even made it through high school. You don't know it, but you saved me. And I haven't forgotten that." Claire blinked, her lips parting as though she wanted to argue. But the words didn't come. Instead, she looked away, blinking fast, her hands tightening around her coffee mug. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The diner's neon sign buzzed faintly outside. Somewhere in the kitchen, Earl the cook clattered pans. But at that table, there was only the quiet weight of two lives that had taken very different paths, and the fragile bridge slowly forming between them again. Finally, Claire whispered, almost too soft to hear, "So what are you saying, Daniel?" And though Daniel wasn't ready to lay it all out yet, the truth was already burning in his chest. He wasn't going to leave Silverton without giving her back the chance she once gave him. Some moments in life feel ordinary until you look back and realize they were the crossroads, the turning points. A single conversation, a single decision, and nothing is ever the same again. For Daniel Mercer and Claire Donovan, that moment came in the quiet of a desert evening, just outside a faded little diner with a flickering neon sign. The shift was nearly over. The customers had gone home, the tables were wiped clean, and the only sound left inside Molly's place was the low buzz of the jukebox that hadn't played a song in years. Claire grabbed her old denim jacket and walked out with Daniel into the cooling night air. The sky above Silverton stretched wide, painted in streaks of purple and orange, the last light of day surrendering to the stars. Daniel slipped his hands into his pockets, unsure of how to say what had been building in him since the moment he saw her again. Claire leaned against her sun-faded sedan, arms crossed, studying him. "So," she said, her voice softer than before, "you going to tell me what's on your mind, or are we just going to stand here staring at each other?" Daniel exhaled slowly. "What if I told you? I could help you get out of here." Her brow furrowed. "Out of Silverton, out of this," he said, gesturing toward the diner behind them. The endless shifts, the dead-end grind, the life that was crushing her spirit. Her laugh was short and sharp. "And what? You just swoop in and fix everything? That's not how life works, Daniel." "Sometimes it is," he said quietly, "if someone cares enough to make it happen." Her expression tightened. "I don't want charity." "This isn't charity," Daniel replied firmly. His voice was steady, grounded in truth. "This is me paying back someone who believed in me before anyone else did. You don't even realize it, Claire, but you're the reason I passed math. You're the reason I didn't drop out. You're the reason I'm standing here today in this suit you're making fun of." Claire blinked, caught off guard. She looked away, her throat working as she swallowed hard. "Even if I said yes, what exactly are you offering?" Daniel took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "A job. Not just a job. A future. I own properties in Denver. One of them needs a manager. Office work. Good salary. Benefits. I'd cover the training." Her head snapped back toward him, eyes wide. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." She let out a shaky laugh, shaking her head like she couldn't decide whether he was crazy or genuine. "Daniel, that's a lot. It's too much." "It's not too much," he said, his tone gentle but unyielding. "It's exactly what you deserve. You've got the brains for it. I know you'd be good at it. You just need someone to open the door." Claire stared past him, her gaze fixed on the dark highway, stretching into the distance. Trucks rumbled by, headlights cutting through the desert night. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "You make it sound so simple." "Sometimes it is," Daniel replied. Silence hung between them. The diner sign buzzed faintly behind them, moths flickering around its glow. The desert night pressed close, heavy with possibility. Finally, she looked back at him. "I'll think about it." Daniel nodded. He didn't press. He didn't need to, because in the way she said those words, in the flicker of light that returned to her eyes, he knew something had already shifted. For the first time in years, Claire Donovan was imagining a way forward. The next morning, Daniel sat in his motel room, sipping bitter coffee from a styrofoam cup. His phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Hello." A shaky voice came through the line. "It's me." His heart lifted. "Claire." "I thought about it," she said. There was a long pause, and he could hear her take a deep breath. and I'm scared. It's been so long since I've done anything big. But if the offer's still there, I want to try." Daniel set his cup down, a slow smile spreading across his face. "It's still there, and it always will be." On the other end, silence stretched. Then, softly, "Thank you for seeing me as more than this job, for remembering who I used to be. You never stopped being her. Some stories don't end where you expect them to. They don't close in sadness, and they don't fade quietly into the past. Sometimes, if you're lucky, they turn into something brighter, a new beginning that feels like it was always waiting just around the corner." For Daniel Mercer, that new beginning came 3 months later in Denver. He walked through the glass doors of one of his office buildings, a place filled with polished marble floors and the faint scent of fresh coffee. He had been here 100 times before, but that day, his steps carried a different kind of anticipation. He wasn't here for numbers or contracts. He was here for something far more important. At the front desk, a woman looked up from a stack of paperwork. Her hair was neatly tied back, her blouse freshly pressed, her eyes bright with focus and energy. "Good morning, Mr. Mercer," she said. And just like that, Daniel's chest warmed. Because it wasn't just anyone behind that desk. It was Claire Donovan. The transformation nearly brought tears to his eyes. Gone was the weary waitress with tired hands and a limp weighed down by years of struggle. In her place stood the woman he always knew was inside her, the one who used to dream with him under streetlights, the one who used to talk about building something better. "Good morning, Claire," Daniel said softly, trying to hide the pride in his voice. "How's everything going?" She grinned, a real grin this time, full of life. "Busy, but the good kind of busy. I'm still learning, but it feels right. Like I finally belong somewhere again." Daniel nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I knew you could do it." Claire looked at him for a long moment, her expression tender. "You know, I almost didn't take your call that day. I almost talked myself out of it. But I'm glad I didn't. Because this isn't just a job, Daniel. It's a chance to start over. To remember who I was before life got in the way." He swallowed hard, his voice quiet. "That's all I wanted, for you to see yourself the way I've always seen you." For a moment, the two of them just stood there, smiling at each other. No grand speeches, no dramatic music, just the quiet joy of two old friends who had finally come full circle. Later that day, as Daniel walked out of the building, he paused on the busy Denver street. People hurried past him, horns blared in the distance, and the world moved fast, as it always did. But in his heart, there was stillness, peace, because he knew something now, something that maybe he had forgotten along the way. Success wasn't about skyscrapers or bank accounts. It wasn't about titles or suits or even the applause of strangers. Success was about people, about the lives you touched, the second chances you gave, the dreams you helped rebuild. And Claire's new beginning reminded him of his own. He smiled to himself, thinking back to that dusty roadside diner in Silverton, the flickering neon sign, and the unexpected detour that changed everything. Life has a funny way of guiding you where you need to be. Sometimes, the flat tire that ruins your day is really just steering you toward the moment that saves someone else's life. And in helping them rise, you find yourself rising too. That day, Daniel Mercer walked away not just as a man who had given an old friend a job. He walked away as a man who had been reminded of the power of hope, the strength of resilience, and the beauty of second chances. And somewhere inside that tall glass building behind him, Claire Donovan smiled at her desk, ready, at last, to build the life she had once only dared to dream about. Because sometimes, all it takes to begin again is one person who refuses to let you forget who you really are. "Claire," Daniel said, "you just forgot for a while." When he hung up, he leaned back in his chair, a feeling washing over him that he hadn't known in years. Hope, that spark they used to share as teenagers, sitting on the stoop, dreaming about what was possible. It was back. And this time, it wasn't just his dream. It was hers too. And together, they were about to make it real. Sometimes life puts us in the right place at the right time, not just to change our own path, but to change someone else's too. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that second chances are real. And if you'd like to hear more stories that inspire hope and healing, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because the next story might just be the one you've been waiting for.